I'd like to call meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals to order on this Monday, April the 19th. Mrs. Kukla, you'd read the preamble, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Liz Kukla. I'm the Secretary of the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I'll read the preamble for you this morning. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law under COVID-19 emergency declaration, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting have the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. Call-in users can unmute by using star 6.
I need you to cancel this phone call.
Next slide, Madam Chair. Ms. Maurice. All meeting activity is being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube for public view. We've provided a link to the meeting for those who wish to speak on a particular case via our website and email. We have also received emails from those who have provided written comments on a particular matter.
Do a roll call, please, Liz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Donovan?
Here.
Ms. Faith? I saw her.
She's logged in twice, so she might be here.
Ms. Barnes?
Barnes, yes.
Thank you. Ms. Britt?
Yes, here.
And Ms. Johnson?
Yes, I'm here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Madam Chair, I just want to reiterate for those call-in users that star 6.
Welcome to WebEx.
Yourself.
Enter your access code or meeting number followed by pound.
Is this on here?
Is Alana with us?
Enter your attendant ID number followed by
She is
pound.
muted.
If you do not know your
Carol,
Sure.
Yes.
Yes, we hear you.
I am on the phone only today. I'm having the same technical issue.
Okay.
I'm working on the video right now, but right now I'm on the phone.
Okay, I'll read.
I can read, Carol. I just can't see.
Okay, okay, honey.
She cannot be seen.
Go right ahead.
You ready?
Oh,
Yes.
Madam Chair, we did receive a postponement request over the weekend for calendar number 21-34. That's regarding 9322 Nelson Avenue. The original postponement was made so she could work with the city planner, Marka Fields. I guess they're still working on the site plan updates. So that request, we can postpone to May 17th, if that would be all right.
It's fine.
Without objection.
Without objection, everybody.
Without objection.
Okay.
Without
And have a withdrawal already on 21-038 at 15609 Lakeshore Boulevard. Is that correct?
Yes, that one is also withdrawn.
Okay. Without objection?
Sorry. Thank you.
Without objection.
Without
Okay.
objection.
Okay.
Without objection.
Hit it, Hal. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Alana.
Okay. Starting out this lovely Monday morning with calendar number 21-052 at 11502 Edgewater Drive. Deborah Cleve, owner, proposes to install 126 linear feet of 6-foot-high wooden fence with gates in an A1, in a double A1 limited one-family residential district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record.
Thank you very much. Tim?
Everyone for this case, who's going to give testimony, please raise your right hand. I'm going to read a statement. Looking for a responsive I do with your name. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Names, please.
Deborah Cleve.
Brandon Henderson.
Anyone else?
No.
Okay,
Hearing none, we move to history.
okay. Liz?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Donovan. The original zoning for this property was single family. In 1967, it was changed to the limited one-family district. And the records room, I was not able to find when this property was erected or when this building was erected. I did find that a permit was issued in 1961 to erect a fence. And again, in 1966, a permit was issued to erect a redwood basket weave fence. There are no variances on file for this address. And in the more recent history, we found a permit was issued in 2013 to re-roof the property. 2016, a permit was issued to replace windows. And 2017, a certificate of occupancy or certificate of disclosure was issued stating that the authorized use of the property is single family. That's all that I have.
Thank you very much. The legal standard, please, Ms. Wagner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appellant is requesting area variances from the fence regulations of the zoning code. To obtain the area variances, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Deborah.
Hi.
Okay, tell us.
So,
Tell us.
yeah, I'm gonna have Brandon Henderson kind of tell you a little bit about what's going on and why there's an immediate need for the 6-foot fence.
And he is.
He's my husband.
Oh. Okay.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time today. So we've had just a couple issues recently, and what we found out from other information from neighbors, the past owners have had issues just with regards to safety. As you could see on the current fence that's erected, you can see through. We have had attempted break-ins, as well as other issues with regards to individuals, trying to steal stuff from our vehicles. So there is a safety issue. And I do believe that based on the condition of this particular property, just because it's a very well-traveled area with regards to Edgewater Drive. A lot of people, especially with the summer, the weather is starting to warm up, walking. We are a corner lot, which does present also some difficulty. And we do have dogs, not only for companionship, but for protection. Unfortunately, because this fence is 5 foot, I know that I believe it's grandfathered in. I believe it's now 4 foot is the ordinance. But unfortunately, there's people just constantly walking by, and whenever we let our dog out to utilize, to go to the bathroom, she's almost able to scale this fence, which is currently a 5 foot. So I do believe there's a safety issue. I do believe that there's also a use and enjoyment issue. We don't have, any complaints from neighbors. We've discussed it with our 2 adjacent property owners that are neighbors, and they are fully in support. I believe you folks have possibly received letters in support, so I don't think there's any objection from any of the neighbors. And we do believe that the fence that we are proposing will still be within the character of the neighborhood.
What kind of fence are you attempting to put up?
A 6-foot privacy fence. And it's going to help not only with the safety, but also keep our dogs contained in our yard as well. Because we do have a big cane corso. If we were to install a 4-foot fence, she would scale it. Coupled with the current fence is almost 20 years old. It's going to give soon. It's loose. It's rickety. So definitely a new fence is needed, and a 4-foot just isn't the answer for us due to safety concerns, as well as we want to be responsible dog owners and keep our dogs in as well.
So this is in the front yard.
No, this is the backyard, which is the side yard because we're a
Oh,
corner
that's
lot.
right. Okay.
Mhm.
But when you say privacy fence, I'd like you to describe it, unless you have a picture of it.
Yes, it's going to be a 6-foot wood fence that's going to be pre-stained, but there's not going to be any like where you could kind of see through the fence. It's going to be privacy. There's not going to be any holes so that, little kids walking by can't stick their fingers in to mess with our dogs. We have had those issues.
I don't mean it. Yeah, part of the problem is because it's so heavily traveled on foot traffic, being that corner lot, there's people constantly, trying to play with our dog, and I don't know why. But she literally can jump up and almost scale this 5-foot. We don't really have many other options, and on top of that, I believe it's a safety issue, just because you can literally see right into our area, which doesn't provide us any privacy, nor does it help with safety issues. Like I said, we have had attempts for break-ins.
Madam Chair, we had a Scott Rosenstein, I think, had his hand raised.
I don't believe he was sworn in. Scott,
Wasn't.
Don't know if he was just playing around with the interface or he actually wanted to talk.
I'm sorry, it's an error on my part. My apologies.
okay.
Okay.
Goodbye, Scott. City of Cleveland, is Sharon,
I'm here.
you're gonna do it. Okay, Maurice.
Yeah, I just questioned, is there any possibility of doing something that would be similar to the white fence that is currently in the backyard? I guess it's your neighbor's fence with the opening in the top. It kind of gives at least some transparency to the area instead of walking by a solid 6-foot wall, which appears to not occur in any of the other properties in the neighborhood. If you look at the house behind them, they have looks like a 2-foot fence. There's not many other 6-foot tall fences up and down on 115th Street. So we're just wondering if that could be a good compromise to have a little bit of it open at the top, provide some transparency.
No, it is not, just because we do have a cane corso and we already have to really watch her in the yard because she's jumping up trying to get after other dogs, other people. Coupled with, it's also a cost issue. Those white fences that you're talking about with open area, they're almost double what a wood privacy fence would cost.
And how far back is the fence going to be off the property line?
It's going to be exactly where it is,
4 feet.
where it is now currently.
It would be where it is now. If you look, unfortunately, it's kind of the only reasonable means in our minds as far as the location on our lot, simply because I just went out and measured, and if you look from the fence to our house where it currently is, it's roughly around 10 feet or so. If we move it back that 4 feet, not only are people going to be walking by constantly, they were walking with their animals that will be, I'm sure defecating on our yard. But again, we also significantly cut down that portion of our lot that we currently have if we were to move it back the 4 feet. We don't believe this exception is detrimental at all to the public or to the character of the neighborhood. There's not going to be any issues with regards to impairing adequate air supply or lighting or anything to any of our neighbors. In fact, I believe they're in support of this along with us. They've not only vocalized that support, but again, I believe have written letters of support. We do believe that it'll still be compatible with the character of the neighborhood. And on top of that, due to the unusual characteristic of our lot, simply because it is that corner lot, I understand that you're pointing out that fence, the white fence in the back there, but I'm telling you, the amount of people that walk by our corner lot there is significant. And, we do believe that not only is it a safety issue for us, but additionally, it could possibly be a safety issue for other folks, or possibly a liability issue for us if little kids are sticking their hands through a fence, because they're trying to do that with our dog at this point. So we do believe that it does require an exception. We're not trying to be unreasonable here or act like we don't want to compromise, because that's not the case, but we're just trying to speak from our point of view as to why it's a necessity without harming anybody else.
Is the fence that comes down, to the end of your driveway, is that angled off there?
Well, I'm sorry, which part are you talking about, ma'am?
Okay, I'm talking about are you looking at the same screen I am with the 4 pictures?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, the right-hand bottom picture.
yes.
Yes, it's angled off so that when we pull out of the driveway that we would be able to see, on
Thank you,
on the
Debbie.
left
That's
side, yes.
exactly what I wanted to hear.
Yes, and they do plan to re-angle that as well, because it's a safety concern, for us backing out to the neighborhood as well. So yes, it's currently angled, and it would be the same structure it is now, just taller, and you wouldn't be able to see through it. And a lot of it is for safety, but also we do have people, because it is a high traffic area, sticking their fingers or kind of messing with our dogs as they go by. And like I said, we do have a cane corso. She's 2. She's very active, and I am concerned about her being a liability, as well as, hurting someone, getting out, hurting another dog as well.
Thank you
Madam
very
Chair,
much.
to Ms. Kukla, has there been any letters of support for this project?
I just
Submitted?
double checked my inbox. I didn't see anything from anyone yet.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just don't think I can support a 6-foot tall fence right on the property line along here. I think I don't see the practical difficulty here. I think that setting the fence back 4 feet and doing a solid fence is going to do exactly what they said. The fact that they're losing some of their property is not a practical difficulty on the city's part. So I just can't support a 6-foot high fence right on the property line there. It's like walking by a 6-foot wall. It doesn't add to the walkability of the neighborhood. I walked up and down West 115th Street. There are no other 6-foot tall fences, and there's no 6-foot tall fence on the opposite corner, which I imagine those people get the same level of traffic as the people on this corner. So I guess I just don't see the practical difficulty. So the city's recommendation would be that we don't support this.
Board?
Well, Maurice, it's kind of interesting because some of the arguments being portrayed here seems to run completely against what I would call the current thinking about pedestrian accessibility and eyes on the street and et cetera. In other words, most of the time what you're trying to achieve is having a lot of people walk by your property because that's eyes on the prize. And, most of those people are good people. They're not there to rob you or fool with your dogs per se. So, yeah, I understand that, why the city would want to take a stance that would basically run afoul of all the policy direction that they've provided in terms of fencing.
Any other comments, board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Well, I think we should ask the appellants to respond to the remarks from the city.
From the city? Okay. Deb?
I'm not sure exactly what response you want to give. We've
Yeah,
discussed
me
with
neither, but go ahead.
we discussed with you the safety issues. I've had to pull a gun on people. We discussed with you the issues of our dog being able to scale the fence and possibly create liability issues. We've discussed the fact that it has zero issue on any of our adjacent property owners. I'm not sure what else I'm supposed to respond to.
And I'd like to, say this. We just called the cops like a month ago. Someone scaled our fence and got in, attempted to break in our cars. We've had people try to break in our house scaling this fence. And, not to mention, I would love to give up 4 feet of the yard, but that's just not a possibility. We don't have much yard to give. As well as that creates a whole nother issue. People will be on that part of the property, that 4 foot, messing with the dogs. Not only that, that would be on our yard. I get, you want to keep our area, walkable, scalable, but you have to understand there are safety concerns in this area as well. I mean, you could check past police history. We have had the cops out here multiple times due to attempted break-ins. One just actually happened less than a month ago.
So have the previous owners.
And so have the previous owners as well. So I mean, it is a safety concern.
Again, Madam Chair, I understand the safety concerns. Putting the fence 4 foot back to meet code is not a practical difficulty on their part. Yes, they lose some of their side yard. That's their choice. However, there's no justification. There's no practical difficulty here to put the fence on the property line. There isn't. I asked for even a concession of maybe doing an open top fence. They weren't open to that.
Well,
We just can't support this variance.
Mr. Rowland, could you explain that a little bit more? I'm not certain I understand. You're saying it would be
An open
your
fence.
compromise would be 6 foot. I guess
I
maybe I'm not
suggested-
understanding.
Yeah, I suggested like the white fence in the back where the top part of the fence was somewhat open, like a 50% opacity, so that it wasn't a solid wall as you walk down there, which is very unwelcoming. It's not pedestrian friendly, and it doesn't exist on 115th Street in the current situation. And I'm sure your neighbors have also had to call the police and have had the same issues that you've had. So again, we're here at the Board of Zoning Appeals. You need to establish a practical difficulty. I don't see the practical difficulty. You can
So
put
if
the-
we
you
go
can
ahead
put a
and
6 foot,
compromise-
excuse me, can I finish? You can put a 6 foot tall fence 4 foot back from the property line. Does it reduce the size of your property? Absolutely. That's not a justification for us to grant the variance. And
Can we
again,
do-
that's
if we agree-
that's just the city's position. The board can choose to either follow our recommendation or not.
But Mr. Rowland, it does cut that side yard almost in half though, or at least 40%. So
If we do the fence with the 6 foot one with like the neighbors with the openness on top, would you be willing to approve that? I mean, we'll compromise if that's what it takes. I'm willing to do that, but I just don't want to give up the side yard. But I'm willing to go ahead, spend the extra money. Because like you said, you want it to be kind of similar to the neighbors and do that plastic, up top, like Nancy's, like Nancy Ruth
Yes.
was next to me.
Yes, we would definitely be open to that situation because it opens the top. If an average adult is walking by, it's not going to be as imposing as a 6 foot solid fence. So yeah, in my opinion, it's not I would rather have it at 4 feet back, but that is a good compromise, I feel.
I feel we could do that. If that's what it takes to not give up the side yard as well as get, some height to our fence to help with the dog, then I think that's a good compromise. It'll cost us more money, but I'm willing to do that, not to give up yard.
We support that.
Okay.
Board, any other
So,
questions?
Madam Chair, to Maurice, could we recap that compromise so we have that clear for the record?
Sure, we are asking that the 6 foot fence have an open portion similar to the white fence that's on their driveway. I haven't measured it, so I don't know how open the top is. It looks like maybe 2 feet, but I can't be 100% sure. I guess if you guys could send us a cut sheet of something that you're proposing to put up there, we can review it. If it's fine, we'll just approve it for you. That'd be great.
We could go measure it right now. It's next door to us and give it to you right now, literally.
Well, that's fine. If we just put that down and if you'll have a week to go do it, correct, Ms. Kukla, before she ratifies the decision to come up with the exact number. You don't have to run out there right now.
Yeah,
Well,
that's a good
Maurice-
compromise.
Yeah, I think so too.
Right, okay.
And we'll just
So-
withhold ratification until they give us a site plan and a depiction of the fence as it's going to be installed.
Okay. So
Right.
then what would the next step be for us?
Okay,
Well, we have to vote.
So,
we have
yeah,
to have
so
a
we're
motion
gonna-
first.
Madam
Right.
Chair, could I say something? This is Liz Kukla.
Sure.
If we could just put the language in there that it's going to be 2 feet of lattice work, so therefore 4 feet of solid fence and 2 feet of lattice work, that would be more clear than the folks coming back to us with a approximate dimension of.
Then I'd like her to run outside now and measure, because I don't think it's 2 feet.
it's not 2 feet. I'll run outside right now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I have no idea. I'm just looking at the picture.
Yeah.
I think I think it's probably 1 foot, 5 foot of fence, and then
We'll get the exact
uh,
number and
foot
within
of
2
lattice.
minutes.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And this way, saves,
You
everyone.
run out and do it right in a
Right.
second.
No, you still have to give us documentation even after.
Oh,
vote.
absolutely. Because I have to call them back out and get it, estimate, have them redraw it up and everything. So we will definitely give you the documentation, but I just want to tell you what it is, the dimensions now while we have you.
Right.
Hi, Doug.
I think you need a fence on the inside of the house.
How many dogs do you have?
We have two. We have a King Corso and a Dash Hound.
Okay.
For the record, I'm just going to say that I lived on Lake Avenue at 104th for 38 years. So I am very much aware of your problems and and when you get near 4th of July, it's even worse. So
Yeah,
you
thank
need to
you.
have that.
It's also one of the prettier neighborhoods in Cleveland.
Oh, we know.
The actual lattice portion is 12 inches.
Thank you.
The
Thank you.
lattice is 12 inches.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
And that's fine with us.
Okay. All right. That's what I suspected it was going to be. Madam Chair, we'll go ahead and move then that on calendar number 21-052, having reached a compromise between city planning and the appellants, the fence can be 6 feet tall. It will be 4 feet of fencing, topped with a foot of lattice. And the appellants will submit to Ms. Kukla prior to ratification, site plan and drawings of the sample fence. And it will be 6 feet high and can remain on the property line as the existing fence is. Is there any other discussion on that?
But the correction is that it's 5 foot of solid fence with a 1 foot of lattice on it.
Right. Sorry.
That's okay.
Second,
Yep. So a total of 6 feet then.
Yes.
second.
Okay.
I guess the only other question I had aesthetically.
We're in a
does it-
motion. We're in the
Oh, I'm
middle of a
sorry.
motion.
Hang on.
Sorry.
When do we do the vote?
I'm sorry.
Liz? Liz, unmute yourself.
Sorry, I must have muted myself. The site plan, is it necessary as we have a site plan showing that the fence is going to be on the property line?
That's your call.
Yeah, I think we have the site plan that we need. We just need that, that cut sheet, as Mr. Rulon stated, showing what the fence will look like. So
Okay.
I'll call
Okay.
the roll. Ms. Faith,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes? I'm sorry, I didn't hear Ms. Barnes.
Berlin?
Okay, we can move along. Ms. Britt,
Yes.
Mr. Donovan,
Yep.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Calendar 21-52 is granted conditionally pending the cut sheet showing what the fence will look like. As soon as we receive that, it'll be ratified. Otherwise, we'll hold it until we receive that, and it'll be ratified the following Monday, and we'll send you a letter.
Okay. And who do I send, all this information to exactly?
Liz
You can send it
Kukla.
to me.
Okay. And what is your email, Liz?
Do I have your email in the file?
I'm not sure.
Let me see. I think I have it. Oh, yes, I have your rht.com
Yep.
email.
That works.
Okay, I will send you an email so you can respond back.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you all.
And can I just ask?
Yeah, the appellant had a question.
Yeah, just very quickly. I'm sorry, guys. Thank you. First of all, thank you. Second of all, aesthetically, does it matter color or, I mean, I know you were mentioning the white.
I think it's the only thing it comes in. I have never seen
Yeah.
it in any other
Gotcha.
color.
Okay.
I think that's up to you, whatever whatever's
Yeah, but
available.
if
I'm
it
not stuck
does-
on white. I was just using that as a reference.
Understood. Understood.
I do
Okay,
think,
thank you.
To the appellant, I do think it comes in other colors now, depending on where you're sourcing it from. But I would be hesitant about that because it sun fades.
And I'm also saying that it doesn't have to be that material. It's just that the 5 foot and the 1 foot. If you find something in wood, that's absolutely fine with us.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving right along,
Thank you.
21-057.
Calendar number 21-057-560 East 99th Street, This is a Public Works invoice W0-70-1011-637. 2000 Development Inc. owner appeals under the authority of Section 7 Charter of the City of Cleveland and Section 329.02D of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances from the decision of the hearing officer dated March 17, 2021, to uphold the City of Cleveland Department of Public Works choice W07010 regarding abating nuisances, in parentheses, grass cutting, at the subject property. This was filed March 6, 2021. Tim?
Everyone for this case who's going to give testimony, please raise your right hand. I'm going to read a statement, hopefully. And I'm looking for a response of I do with your name. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give, swear or affirm, is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Anyone here for this case? No one?
Please use *6 if you're on the phone.
It looks like we have is Bill
Brewster.
Lang, you're muted, and it looked like Ariel Koch. Are you all both here for this case?
Yeah.
I'm here for the city.
Okay.
Ariel, Ms.
You
Koch is
still
from the
have to
city.
respond to the swearing in process by saying I do with your name.
And,
I do, Ariel Kolk.
and it looks like Mr. Lang is having a hard time unmuting himself. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, there you go.
No, I do and your name, sir.
I do, Bill Lang.
Okay. Anyone else for this case?
I do,
Last-
Natasha Brewster.
Okay. Anyone else? Last call. Hearing none, we move to history.
Madam Chair, this is a violation notice issue.
Yes.
Therefore, we do not have history on this.
The legal standard, Ms. Wagner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appellant is appealing an administrative decision. The standard of review to be applied is whether the administrative decision was illegal, arbitrary, capricious, unreasonable, or unsupported by the preponderance of substantial, reliable, and probative evidence. If the appellant fails to meet this burden, the administrative decision must be affirmed.
Thank you very much. Who is the representative of the 2000 Development Inc. company?
Bill Lang.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
And you've been served with a notice for cutting the grass, is that my understanding?
We received a fine. I don't know. Can you hear me? I've never used this before.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I received the fine and I appealed the fine.
And are you, well, I gotta make you louder because I can barely hear you. Okay, go ahead. You had a hearing with the inspector, or?
I had a hearing with Natasha. She denied my protest, and that's why I'm here now.
Well, you got to make a case for us to reverse that decision. So what is your case?
Okay, I submitted a bunch of photos and a statement. Did you guys receive that? And have you driven by the lot?
Maurice, are you there?
I'm sorry, what was that?
It stated that he has the photos. You have the photos, right, that were sent to you?
Right there.
Madam Chair, perhaps we should ask the city to outline the case that they
Yes, I think
have
you're
against them. Yeah, then we'll
Yeah.
go to the photos.
Okay, Natasha Brewster. I had Mr. Bill Lang sent in a protest on December 24th, 2019, and it was denied. He stated that he maintained the owned property, and it stated that he must submit the supporting documentation to support his claim on who maintains the property. I never received that. He called in, and I explained to him what he was supposed to send in, and the only thing that he came up with is that he thinks that the neighbor had called and made a complaint on the property because she lives in a CMHA property with 4 people and can't buy that property, and the city denied her to put up a fence. That's the only explanation I got out of him, and he explained that a billboard was put that was on another property that they wasn't paying taxes on, which I explained to him that had nothing to do with his case, that he needed to present the evidence of who maintained his property, which he didn't provide in December nor March.
Mr. Lang?
Yes, that's not completely correct. The reason we've had this property in my family since the 1960s, and we've never had any complaints on it until the woman that lives across the street was trying to put up a fence, which should be all city record, and she started complaining about our property having trash and grass or whatever it was. So I had hired, when we first started getting these fines a couple of years ago, I hired a grass cutting company. And this was part of the file that I submitted to you guys. And I was still receiving letters from the city getting fines, even though there was a paid company that was taking care of the land. So I'm just assuming from the neighbors that I've spoken with is that she continually calls the city to complain about it. So even if the land's being maintained, we're still getting complaints on it. So after I was talking to Natasha, she said I did not have to have a grass cutting, a landscaping company. I could tend to the land myself. I live in Willoughby, so it's like a 20-minute drive from there. So I do come out every couple of weeks and clean and cut the grass and pick up the trash. But this violation is from August. And as everyone knows, the grass doesn't really grow that much in August. So it probably was 3 weeks from when I last cleaned it. So yes, that's a main thoroughfare that cars travel past, and there's tons of trash. Alcohol bottles, fast food bags, just trash thrown out of their car as they go by. So you can clean up the area, and within a matter of hours, there's going to be more trash thrown out. And as far as regarding that billboard, I was just telling her that a lot of the properties around there, I'm sure the city record has that too, people have not paid any taxes, paid any of their sewer bills, water bills for years. And I just explained to her that the lot beside us has a big billboard that they're probably pulling in thousands of dollars a month on, and they have not paid anything for over 10 years. It's not like the lot that we have, that where I'm talking about, it's a vacant parcel. It generates no income. We make no money on this. I'm paying the sewer bills on it, the taxes. And until a couple of years ago, I didn't even have anything to do with the city. There's no problems with it at all. If you look at the picture, the building beside it, we tore our building down in the late 90s. So that building beside it, that guy did trucking, and he was using the land, and in return, he would take care of it. So we never even, I mean, I'll be quite honest with you, there's probably 5 years that we never even drove by the property, and we never had any issues at all with it until this woman tried to put up a fence, and she was not able to because she does not own the property. And that's when all the problems started.
But I also explained to Mr. Lang that if she did make a complaint, inspectors still have to go out to see if it is in violation. So if an inspector went out and it wasn't in violation, they wouldn't put in a work order to be serviced. So when the inspector went out, it was in violation. That's why they came with the tractor to cut his property.
Is that what these pictures are? This is a violation I'm looking at?
These are
It looks
newer
like-
pictures. These are not from August of 2019.
Madam Chair, I took these pictures last week,
Okay.
just for reference.
Yeah, and he
Well,
explained that
Tasha
he
told me
had
that she
someone
got
that
pictures
started
of
to
the
maintain the property, but he couldn't provide the evidence for August when he stated to me that he didn't come out there that often because he lived far away. But I explained to him he owned that parcel and he have to maintain that parcel no matter if someone comes by and dump on his property. It's not the city responsibility to always clean every parcel.
Well, that's not true. I never even told you where I lived, nor how far away I lived from that property. What I explained to you was that the woman who was complaining wasn't even paying to cut her own grass or pick up her own trash. And if she had such a problem with the trash, all she's got to do is walk across the street and pick it up, and that would be it. It wouldn't even be an issue. I never told you where I lived. Never.
No, I didn't say you said you told me where you lived at. You said you didn't live in that area.
Right.
So you did not come down that far. I never said that you told me where you live, because you didn't.
But the lady across the street is not responsible for the trash on your property, sir.
Yeah, Madam Chair, to Natasha. So this violation notice is from August of 2019.
Yes, August 5th, 2019.
And we're hearing it now.
Yes, he had a hearing with me he requested a hearing from me, and it was on March 17th, and then he called you all it was denied because he didn't have any evidence or a landscaper to maintain his property.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, I'm afraid that the arguments that it's a neighbor's fault because they called in that there's debris and dump stuff on your property. And in response to that, the city does what the city's supposed to do. They sent out an inspector. That inspector found the condition to be one that led to a notice that you need to clean the property up. And that notice is valid. I mean, that's the way the city works, and we don't care what happens next door. If you think that there's problems, you have the same ability to call in and ask for a code inspection on your neighbor's property. That's the way the system seems to work.
Yes, but we own the property right next door that's attached to it. I bought that in 2018, and that received no violation, yet it's cared for in the same way. So if
It's gonna come. It'll come.
No, it hasn't. Never.
Well,
Not one time. Have you guys driven by the area? I mean, that's like the main road. Going to MLK, going to Eddy Road. Have you guys been by the area?
No, we don't do that.
Yeah, that's like the main thoroughfare. Clean that up, and within an hour, there's stuff on the ground.
That's what the inspectors are for.
That's what the pictures are. Those are recent pictures taken by city planning. So what we're seeing is what the parcel looks like.
What about all the pictures I sent in? All the stuff that I sent?
It's on screen right now.
Oh, I don't see any of the pictures.
They were on screen for 15 minutes. Nobody addressed them.
All right.
So the argument that you are facing here is whether the city acted in a manner that was arbitrary, capricious, unlegal, or not enforced by the preponderance of evidence presented.
It's selective enforcement. I'm saying that it's selective enforcement because we own the property next door, and that's not getting any fines. And there's trash.
So your response to this is that it's all right to have litter and debris on the property we own because we haven't gotten any fines yet. And except this one parcel now has gotten some fines, but it shouldn't have because the next door one that you also own is full of debris and it hasn't.
No,
it's not a very good argument to me.
No, because you're going to send the guys out.
But I maintain the two properties the same way. And the reason that this one is getting a fine and the other one isn't is because no one is calling to complain about it.
Exactly. That is the way the system works. That is not arbitrary or capricious. That is a policy and procedure system that the city of Cleveland follows. It answers complaints by its citizens. True or false, city?
True. And on that note, I will entertain a motion.
Yeah.
So we're gonna play a little game.
Wait, let me hang up from this call.
Who's speaking?
I don't know.
Okay. All right, board, I
Madam-
will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, given the testimony from the appellant and from the city representative, and I move that we uphold this. This is from 2019. The fact that the appellant lives at some distance, you know, that does not remove him from responsibility. The fact that there's some dispute between he and the neighbor, that doesn't bear any weight on this. So I move that we uphold the judgment.
Second. Call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Donovan,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Barnes, yes.
thank you. Ms. Faith,
Yeah.
Ms. Britt,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Calendar 21-57 is denied. It'll be ratified next week and we will send you a letter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Faith, 21032.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep, okay.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, I'm toggling back and forth between the phone and my app. So, postponed from March 22nd, 2021, calendar number 21-034 at 9322 Nelson Avenue. Intrinsic renewal, owner proposes to renovate and use as office and
Excuse me,
warehouse.
Alana. That was postponed. That case was postponed.
What?
Oh, no, that's not correct. That's a rehearing this morning.
Yeah, she talked about 34. That's Nelson Avenue.
Oh,
That
I
was
apologize.
postponed. Am I not correct?
Oh, I'm sorry. Nelson Avenue was postponed?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
missed
we're at
that.
2132.
Sorry, 1 second.
No problem.
In my midst of trying to fix my technical issues. So,
Sure.
I'm sorry, what number are we on?
21-32. 3182 West 25th Street.
All right.
You have it?
I'll read it.
Yeah, go ahead and read because it looks like I may be missing that.
Okay, 3182 West 25th Street. 1870 West 25th Street LLC owner proposed for use as a restaurant in a C2 local retail business district and a pedestrian retail overlay district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the following sections of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances. This was postponed from which we had testimony on February 25th. We granted the postponement on the variance because of technical difficulties precluded the neighbors from voicing their concerns about the parking.
Madam Chair, will everyone for this case please raise your right hand? I'm going to read a statement. I'm looking for a response of I do with your name. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do, Gary Fisher.
Next.
I do, Glenn Pickens.
Next.
I do,
Happy
Alex
Moss.
Quinones.
All right. Anyone else?
I do, Matthew Moss, City Planning.
Anyone else? Last call. Hearing none, it's on to history.
Well, we've already had the history. We'll need the legal standard we'll be judging the case on.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appellant is requesting an area variance from the off-street parking requirements of the zoning code. To obtain the area variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Thank you very much. I'd like to hear from the neighbors who had difficulty from making their concerns known at the last hearing. Hello?
Hello, good morning. How you guys
Who
doing?
are you?
My name is Alex Quinones. I own the property behind the property in discussion.
Okay, I
There's
thought
an
you're the
alley and there's no-
house.
Correct.
You have a red car?
Yes.
Okay, I thought we heard from you the last time.
Oh, I sent the email. I don't know if you guys got a copy of the email stressing somewhat of my concern.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, we didn't have that email before the hearing last. So this is, that's why we're here today, because he wasn't able to voice his concerns and express himself regarding this request.
Go ahead,
Let's
sir.
hear it. Let's hear the concerns.
Well, my issue is, as far as the parking issue, it gets congested back. So I've had multiple clientele from the barbershop park in my area. Numerous people I've had to address, on top of the trash being thrown, getting blown into my area. My tenant came home one day, there was no parking because of other people parking there. On top of one day, I also came home and it just looks like somebody pulled in there, threw trash out and pulled out. So when I came home, I had to, of course, pick the trash up, but it's been ongoing. Parking's been an issue. That doesn't include the parking on Alphen. It's been backed up when it gets congested. So, and when I originally tried to call in, I couldn't get through because I was on the phone. That's the reason I sent the email addressing the concern. There was a guardrail put up and that guardrail gets hit very often. I also submitted a picture of that. So that's been my concern. And again, parking's been an issue, and me being the adjoining property off the alley, it's been an issue.
Well, I'm looking at the picture. I don't, there's nobody parked on the alley when the picture was taken, but I see that rail, you know, that you said they hit.
Parking is an issue every day. It's more 4 out of the full week. Them days get busy towards the weekend, and it's an issue. It's not every day. I'm not saying it's an issue every day, but opening a business is gonna congest even more.
Is there a no parking sign someplace on that West 26th place?
On my property, there is. I had to get two because of that issue. I had to get two put on the garage that's put there because of that issue. I've never had issues before. So yes, there are no parking, get towed, and by the time the tow truck comes, they're already gone. So I've called numerous times and it's been an issue. That's my concern.
Can you go back to the Front Street picture, Maurice?
This one?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so City Breaks is there, and what are they? Coffee shop?
It's a barber shop.
Oh, fine. Okay, and the other building is where the restaurant wants to be.
To the right, yes.
To the right, okay. So he's concerned about all the parking and traffic.
Madam Chair, we do have Matt Moss, the city planner for the neighborhood. I don't know if you'd like to.
Of course, I'd like to hear from Matt Moss. Matt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can speak to some of the history of this project. This project was originally design reviewed several years ago through the Near West Design Review Committee. And we looked at among many things, the site plan for this property and worked with the building owner to figure out the best ways he can maximize off-street parking. But as with pretty much every property on West 25th, at least in this part of the neighborhood, the buildings are old. They exist on sites that limit the amount of off-street parking that can physically be provided on property. And in order to have these buildings be reoccupied, which is a long-term goal of the city, the development corporation, and the neighborhood, there's just going to be a practical difficulty in terms of being able to provide enough land to park cars. As you can see from the aerial, there's lots of land right now used for parking and for car storage. And some of the ways that we're working to alleviate that long term is working with RTA to build a rapid transit line on West 25th. That's an ongoing study right now that will be wrapping up later this year, which RTA will then apply for millions of dollars of funding in order to realize that goal. So long term, we are working through zoning code reforms, through transportation network reforms, through transportation investment, trying to alleviate the need to travel by car to get your haircut or to visit a local retail establishment in the neighborhood. But in the short term, I think this owner has done everything they can to provide as much parking as possible on their property. It's great that they're fully utilizing the city infrastructure like the alley to maximize their parking. There's parking available on the side streets. And, in parallel to that, we are working closely, we're trying to work closely with Public Works to have a more modern, robust street parking and metering program, which we know helps open up parking availability and creates turnover. But I think this property owner is doing the most they can to provide as much parking as possible. The only alternative would be to require them to acquire other land and either tear down buildings or pave over that land to provide that parking, which I don't think is very practical given just the realities of the market here and the built environment.
There's no parking on West 26th Place. Is that correct?
No, there isn't. And as far as touching on Mr. Moss's side parking on the side streets, I lived on Alton over 30 years, and there is no street parking on Alton, and that gets congested.
Who is this that is speaking?
This is Alex Quinones, owner of.
Okay, fine. I just want to make sure. Okay.
Yeah.
We
So I know
swore
he
in.
addressed. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, go right ahead. Finish.
He addressed that there's off-street parking on Alton. There is no off-street parking at all. You can see that on the picture. And when they do park there, it gets congested. When that gets congested, my area tends to get congested.
Madam Chair, there's parking on the east side of West 25th on Alton. That was the side street I was referring to.
Okay. There is parking on the east side of it.
I don't think it's unreasonable to expect people to cross a street. There's a crosswalk there. I know West 25th can be hard to cross sometimes just from living in the area and experiencing that street, but there are side streets that are within a reasonable walk of this building.
Okay, let's hear from who's speaking?
Property owner, Glenn Pickens.
Okay, Mr. Pickens, go ahead.
In addition to our on-site parking, I have also secured additional spaces to the north side of La Moranita, which is at the corner of Blatt and 25th. And we intend to secure more if need be through the Hispanic Business Council.
Well, you'll make that mostly employee parking probably so that your customers can be closer to spending their money.
It's additional parking we have secured already and continue to secure more if need be.
Okay. Gary Fisher was sworn in. I'd like to hear from him.
So I'm the architect on the project. We've done everything we can, as the development agency said, to work with them to get as many off-street spaces as we could on the property. Given the building occupies pretty much from property line to property line, it's very hard to get spaces at all. We were lucky to find spaces at the rear of the building because most buildings along 25th don't even have that. In addition, I would say that this new business actually occupies the north half of the building, which further removes it from the side street. So more than likely, the customers would tend to park on 25th or across the street on maybe on Alton, as more convenient anyway. So it's not increasing any issue. And again, we're using the building as it originally was.
Is this a sit-down restaurant or?
It is. It's a sit-down.
Okay. And it has room for how many patrons?
Off the top of my head, I want to say we're at like 48.
Okay. And the hours of operation?
I don't know off the top of my head. Glenn, do you know that?
I believe they're planning on morning and lunch for now. But I believe that's still kind of open-ended.
Open and lunch certainly would help, I think, the traffic problem, but.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, is there like a gap between the amount of spaces they can provide and that versus how many, according to the zoning, they need? Is there a number? Hello?
Yeah.
And anybody? City?
15 spaces are required.
15? Okay.
And how many are provided on site?
6
There
conforming.
are 10 on site.
It
Okay,
says 10 off site.
Yeah, that's correct.
And 6 are there. So you're short 4.
That is not a huge number.
No.
That's
And
the
again,
only,
we've
that's
already
the only
acquired
variance they
3
need.
to the north.
Right.
Not to
Your
chime
phone,
in.
whoever's playing with the paper.
Hi, this is Alex Quinones again.
Okay,
The default on that, it's not many parking spots, but when they get the parking in my area, that's where it becomes a problem. And that's the issue I've been having. And I've addressed the owner, which he's not a bad guy, but I've just addressed my concern on what goes on my property. That's all. When my tenants don't have somewhere to park, I have an issue with that. When I come home and it's trash everywhere that isn't mine, I have an issue with that. Restaurant's going to increase that. That's my concern. That's what I've been addressing. On top of, like I said, the guardrail being there. If that guardrail wasn't there, I'm sure my house would have been hit numerous times. You can see how beat up the guardrail is.
Madam Chair, I don't know if you can see the aerial that I just put up. I wanted to ask the applicant, you mentioned you'd gotten parking agreement on Blatt Court,
Yes, sir.
which,
So it'd be on if we're looking at the left side of Blatt.
On the corner, Glenn?
So it'd be the southwest corner of Blatt and 25th.
so the large open parking lot.
Correct.
It's just down the end of the street, at the end of the block. Okay, thank you. I just wanted everybody to see where they
where
were
it
talking
was,
about.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's in a near vicinity. I mean,
It's the next corner, yeah.
Yeah, 2-minute walk.
Not an unreasonable distance at all.
Do you have any kind of documentation, like lease or
I
any
do.
contractual, something that can be proven as evidence of additional parking?
Yes, sir.
Is it a 5-year, at least 5 years of ability to make those spaces open to you?
Somebody please mute your
No,
phone.
we are, I believe it is a year lease and then month to month after that at this point.
We could ask our lawyer to look at it. If that's part of your testimony, that you have secured additional off-street parking through a lease arrangement, then how many spaces does that allow? How many spaces?
I have secured.
Go ahead.
I have secured 3 spaces. There's been no open discussion about additional, but they have signaled that there are more if we would like more. But to speak to hard numbers, I couldn't do that.
If they could give you 6, you'd be covered.
And I would assume that's completely reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I might, this is Gary Fisher again.
Yes, Gary.
We're not the only ones that use that alley, or Mr. Pickens, tenants and clients of the barber shop are not the only ones that use that alley. I am not sure, who's hitting the guardrail, because I can see it's dented all the way to the front of the building, or front of the property owner's property. I just don't know who comes up or down that alley. I can't say whether it's tenants or that. And, not saying that tenants didn't hit it, but I don't know that that's them. I don't know that that's, even the trash. If you go through the neighborhood, there's trash that seems to accumulate a lot. I know Mr. Pickens has talked to the owner about trying to make sure that, the tenants are well aware that they cannot park in that driveway. His driveway actually is off of Glenn's property, so it's farther to the north. So, I don't know what else that Mr. Pickens could do other than, reinforce with the tenants that, they can't park in that property. And that's, sometimes you just can't fix, stupid if they don't know how to behave properly, and park on other people's properties.
There's a lot of stupid in the world too.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay. Any other questions, board? City of Cleveland, Maurice?
Well, Matt Moss is here. He is pretty much giving the recommendation for the city, but I believe we support this as we did last time, especially with the additional information of the parking spaces that they're acquiring down at Blatt Court or Blatt Street and West 25th.
Excuse me, this is property owner again, Alex Quinones.
Go ahead.
So this going forward, I already got one on board. What happens when I continue to still have issues over here in my property? From tenants parking there to barber shop, and I'm sure if they open a restaurant, that's going to be twice as much traffic, if not 3 times.
Well, they're only going to be open till 2:00 in the afternoon. So
that's what they're saying now. I've heard otherwise, but
well,
I think it behooves you to get together with the property owner and the tenants and to take a team approach. I don't think anybody on the team wants people to be illegally parking on your property. I don't think anybody on the team wants people to be littering back there. And perhaps if you share jointly the idea that you work together, open lines of communications, you can help solve some of the problems that you brought to our attention.
That's my issue. I brought it up to Glenn, and again, it continued the issue. That's the reason I've got the signs put up after the issue became an issue, and I've addressed him when, hey, what's going on with parking? It's already affecting me. Restaurants going to be more people stop, wait, park, and more 15-minute traffic versus overnight traffic.
Well, again, I would suggest that the building owner that has the barber shop in it and will have the restaurant should meet with the owners of those businesses and make sure that they tell their customers, where'd you park? Okay, that's good or that's bad, so that you start to change behavior. Certainly barber shops seemingly have repeat customers, so that's actually a good thing in terms of trying to have a strategy that solves your problem.
I've already had to go into the barber shop and address a customer. Can you please move your vehicle? He's like, oh, I said, well, I shouldn't have to do that if it's my property. Would you want to deal with that on a daily at your property? That's my concern.
No, but the only way to change behavior sometimes is to do something like that so that they know. Maybe the person doesn't know.
You just addressed how stupid people are. So this is something I have to deal with on a daily. That's my concern. Some days are a lot worse than others. Restaurant's going to be traffic all week. That's my problem. All week. If you guys live next to what I live next to, then you would understand my concern. But it's just not, it's more benefiting everybody but me. That's how I feel.
How many tenants are in this house?
I got one tenant upstairs with one vehicle. I park back there.
And you live in this house also?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so there are two families.
Yes.
So
That
2
doesn't include,
cars?
yes. Top of my son sometimes park back there and he lives in the building. So it's actually 3 parkings. On top of when my tenant comes home, there's no parking available. It gets a little stressful when you got somebody, you know, pretty much upset. They're paying rent. There should be parking.
Put a sign up. If you park here, you will be towed.
I have put 2 signs up. That's what I put the signs up after it became an issue. That
Have
I've
you
already
had
addressed
anybody
that.
towed? Have you had anyone towed?
I've called twice. By the time they come, the tow truck comes, the people leave. I mean, it's an inconvenience. That's my issue. It seems like no one is trying to listen to my concern.
Yeah.
That's the problem I'm having. I pay my taxes. I do what I do what I need to do. And it's just when you voice your opinion, your concern, and no one is willing to hear you out, it gets frustrating.
So I don't know about that story. I heard about a guy who's gone and rented parking spaces to try to accommodate both the business and you and the neighborhood. So it's not like nobody is doing nothing or not hearing anything. That's not a true statement.
I understand that, but somebody will park a block away to walk down, or they just gonna pull around back. On top of the issues being on Alton, that doesn't include all around. This is not my area. That's on Alton as well, in front of the house. My concern is in the back, my property, my tenant, me. That's my concern. And again, no one's listening. It doesn't make it easy. At the end of the day, everybody goes home and doesn't have to deal with that. I live here. I have to deal with that. I see that guardrail getting tagged at least 3-4 times a week. Imagine if that guardrail wasn't up there. Then what? Well, that's my property.
3 or 4 times a week,
if not more.
But Al, that guardrail was put in when that was a bar, and a lot of that damage was done with the prior establishment that was in my building before I owned it, correct?
Not all of it, but some has. But there's been, again, to this day, it gets tagged at least 3-4 times a week. I'm sure if you walk past the guardrail, I'm sure there's tail light covers on there. You're more than welcome to walk by there.
I'm not disputing it, but 3-4 times a week sounds up there.
Madam Chair, we have Matthew Moss would like to make a comment.
Matthew?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I haven't connected with Alex about any of these issues to date. I would be happy to connect with him and the Development Corporation to see if there's any resources we can connect him with to make improvements to his property to alleviate that issue. I don't know off the top of my head what, if anything might be available. I think, I'm listening to his concerns and trying to think of ways in which the city can help. But I think it's getting a bit muddled between what the variance request is on this property, and if denying it it doesn't seem to me like denying the variance will alleviate that issue if it's already an issue now. I understand his concern that he's worried it will get worse if the variance is granted, and so I think it makes sense to try to figure out how we can connect him with resources to make improvements that can prevent that behavior from drivers, which seems to be the underlying issue here. Not
Thank you,
that,
Matthew. Thank you. Best suggestion.
Yep, and I agree with that because we do have other cases too. So
Okay, we're going to make a motion.
Just kind of, your cost to me, the cost to.
Also, I got another concern go ahead, I'm sorry.
So we
Go ahead, Mr. Quinones.
I also have a concern with, Matt saying, as far as expressing their concern, I'm having a total another issue that doesn't have nothing to do with this. I've been dealing with for 4 years. The city hasn't been a part of it. No one has been trying to listen to my concern, and that has to do with parking. This is the issue I'm having again.
Okay, Matt Moss is going to contact you and is going to try to get you some help from the city. Okay, Mr. Briones?
Yes. So where do we go from here, if you don't mind me asking?
Okay. You have to work with the city to get it.
Mr.
You've had a
Madam-
problem without the restaurant even being open, so it isn't something that this is going to create. Hopefully, maybe with the parking down the corner, with signage from both the barber shop and the restaurant telling people that that is available for free, that maybe that would help. Because eventually 25th Street, I think, is going to only be down to one lane. Seems like it is now when I go down it, but that's all right. Okay, we'll entertain a motion now.
Madam Chair, I want, first of all, I'd like to assure Mr. Quinones that his voice has been heard. Mr. Matt Moss has agreed to contact him and work with both he and the Community Development Organization. It does seem that the perimeter of his lot seems a bit blurred with the alleyway, and hopefully they can come up with some solutions that will mitigate that situation. That being said, I move that given the testimony that we've heard from city planning and from the property owner in that additional parking has been secured, we will need to have documentation of that submitted to Mrs. Kukla, showing the length of the lease and that they're going to be the number of spaces before we can affirm this. With that being said, I move that we go ahead and approve this variance.
Wow.
Second.
Call a roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Britt,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mr. Donovan,
Yes.
Ms. Faith,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
121-32 is granted conditionally pending that lease agreement. It'll be ratified once we receive that agreement, and then we will send you a letter after. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Calendar 21-043 at 9322.
Oh, okay, this is the one that was postponed, correct, Liz?
Yes, that one's been postponed to May 17th.
Okay, I've got 8399 Huff Avenue.
Yes,
043, yes, okay. They almost look alike, don't they?
yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
043 has been postponed?
No.
No.
No, just the Nelson Avenue one.
Okay, the Nelson. Okay, so we are doing 21-043, correct?
Right.
Okay. Case number 21-043 at 8399 Huff Avenue. A Diamond in the Huff owner proposes to establish use as a carry-out restaurant in a C2 multifamily residential district. The owner appeals for the relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record. The first postponement made at the request of the board is requesting a detailed site plan showing landscaping was not available at the previous hearing. Tim?
Everyone for this case, please raise your hand. I'll read a statement. Your response, I do, your name. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do, Brundine Van Ness.
I do, Dino DeSantis.
Anyone else? Anyone at last call? All right. On to history or whatever. Update.
No, we've had the history. Let's go to the legal standard with you judging the case.
Before you do that, real quick, Matt Moss had his hand raised. Matt, did you need to make a quick comment about something, or was that a mistake?
No, that's from the last case. Sorry, Maurice.
Oh, okay, no problem. Sorry, didn't want to interrupt.
Okay, the legal standard will be judging this case on?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appellant is requesting a use variance and area variances from the landscaping regulations of the zoning code. To obtain the use variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will result in an unnecessary hardship particular to the property, such that there will be no economically feasible use of the property without the variance, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. To obtain the area variances, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Thank you very much. Have we received the detailed site plan showing the landscape? Oh, hello. Does that cover everything we needed, Mr.? Wonderful. Where is Mr. Rulins? There he is.
Yes.
Good. We need the days of the week and store hours, please. Mr. Van Ness?
7 days a week, 8 a.m. till 8 p.m.
Okay. Sunday, 8 till 8?
That's correct. We're following along with the hours of the Neon Health Clinic across the street.
Oh. Okay. Now I know where to go to get a pizza at 8 o'clock in the morning. Any other comments, board? Hello, anybody?
My only comment, Madam Chair, is that is a lovely landscape plan.
Yes. I'll entertain a motion.
Given that they have fulfilled our request and the store hours are syncing with the key business across the street. We've heard most of this case previously. I move that we go ahead and approve this variance.
Madam Chair, can I just ask one question real quick?
Hold on, we need a second first.
Okay, sorry.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Maurice.
Just to the applicants through the chair, I'm looking at the picture that I have on screen now, which is great. But then we have another one down here that has I take it that is the trash dumpster enclosure. I just wasn't sure which one.
Sure.
Because in the first one does not have the trash dumpster. I'm just asking for the actual location of it. That's all.
So the reason for that is because I do own the parking lot, which is it's still in white to the left of the screen that you're seeing right now, to the left of the building.
Okay.
So when we're able to utilize that parking lot, then the dumpster would go to the back of that building, and that allows for us to have the green space in the back with the picnic tables, the trees, and then those between the turf stone area and where the picnic tables would be are planted barriers. So this drawing that you're seeing now is just showing 8399 parcel on its own. So if we weren't allowed to show including the parking lot to the left, that would be sort of plan A. And then this is the bigger plan, sort of the option to be able to include the additional green space.
Okay, great. It was just a clarification, just curious. I hope we get to include the green space. And I really like the turf stone driveway as well.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Quite an improvement.
Yes, thanks for the clarification, Mr. Ruin. Is there any other discussion? We've had a second on the motion.
We did. Call the roll.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Britt?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yep.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Bath?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Calendar 21-43 is granted based on the updated revised drawings. It'll be ratified next week, and we will send you a letter.
You had your hand up? So,
yes.
Did you folks, one of you have a hand up?
Yes. First of all, thank you for that. And could we start out with the green space as opposed to tearing everything up, putting in some concrete, and then moving the dumpster later and putting the green space back? Could we kind of know now that we could put the dumpster on her property from the start?
So you want to know if you can put the dumpster to the left on this drawing?
The
Yes.
dumpster would go right where the paperback maple little circle and the 1,600 square foot seating where that's written, that's where the dumpster would go, is at the back of that parking lot.
Rather
As
than
long
rip
as
up.
as long as it's
the-
properly
right now.
screened, I have no problem with that. I mean, as long, if you own that property, is the board okay with that?
Yes.
Fine.
Perfect.
Great, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you, you too.
Okay. Calendar 20-135, 1415 Kenilworth Avenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Here we go again. Welcome back to everyone. Calendar number 20-135. This is postponed for the second time from January 25th, 2021. This is calendar number 20-135 at 1415 Kenilworth Avenue. 1415 Kenilworth LLC proposes to construct a 5-story apartment building in a D2 multifamily residential district and an urban form overlay district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record. To Mr. Donovan.
Everyone for this case who is going to testify, kindly raise your right hand. I'm going to read a statement. I'm looking for a response of I do with your name. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do, David Mason.
I do, Brent Zimmerman.
I do, Corey Reardon. I do, Donald Pettit.
I do, Kerry McCormack.
Oh.
Anyone else?
I do, Khalid Hawthorne.
I do, Jonathan Petrie.
We had a Susan, looks like she had her hand raised.
I do, Susan Shalaba.
And then there was a Kate O'Neill.
I do, Kate O'Neill.
Okay.
And of course, Matt Moss.
Okay, Matthew.
Anyone
All right.
else?
Who is testing? Am I the only one that can hear these papers crunching?
No.
Well, we can all hear it. It's very annoying. I wish the person doing it would mute their microphone until they're asked to speak. I think it's a call-in user.
Okay, thank you. Jeez. Got a headache. Okay.
Last call. Anyone else? Hearing none, let's move on.
Okie dokie. The legal standard. Wait, the history we've had 100 times. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appellant is requesting an area variance from the off-street parking regulations of the zoning code. To obtain the area variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Well, I've certainly seen enough traffic review plans. Who's going to be the spokesperson? Oh,
I will be, Madam Chair, David Mason.
okay, David Mason.
And I'll be brief, because like you say, you've all heard this before, but we were asked to provide a parking study of the area. Our argument was that there was ample off-street parking, and at least in our observation over the course of 18 months, there certainly appeared to be. And so we reached out to Transportation Management Services Engineers Incorporated. They're a local engineering firm that does traffic studies. The area, the next slide will show the target area of this study. Basically, the area is a 5-minute walk to the site. The survey was over the course of 3 days: Thursday, February 25th, Friday, February 26th, and Saturday, February 27th. there were full counts of every open space and vehicle on Thursday and Friday from 7 to 9, 11 to 1, and then 3 to 5. So there were a total of 23 full counts of the parking in the area. Quick recap. Average on Thursday yielded an available 250 available parking spaces in the target area. On average, Friday was 278 available spaces in the area on average. Saturday was 200, or excuse me, Saturday was 250, 278 on Friday, 295 on Thursday on average, and this count did not include the lot that the city has just put in on Abbey Road that contains about 59 spaces. So we feel like it pretty clearly demonstrates that there's ample on-street parking in the area. So we distributed this study to all the folks that we've been talking with throughout the course of the project on the 3rd of March, and we'd like to see how the BZA would like to proceed.
I'd like to hear from the resident survey that they also submitted. Who would be?
Madam Chair, before we
Yes.
move on, can we just ask it, given the data that they've collected, what is their analysis of that data as it pertains to the question at hand?
Hello. David, are you going to answer?
I'm sorry, what was that question again?
I said, given the data you collected, is there any conclusions you've arrived at in terms of parking and the issue that we are deliberating here today at hand?
Well, I think the analysis would be that there's ample on-street parking available in the Tremont area at all times of the day. There isn't a parking problem parking problem that's been described on these calls according to the survey.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
Madam Chair, I also have Matt Moss had done some research that the board had requested. I think he wanted to present.
Go ahead, Matt.
I'm happy to present that now, Madam Chair, or if you prefer to hear from residents first, that is up to you.
Now I want to hear this so I compare apples to apples, and then I will hear from each of the residents who's been sworn in.
Understood. So Maurice is pulling up. So
Okay.
I in anticipation of the parking study requested by the developer, I analyzed the on-street parking myself too to try to corroborate or provide an alternative perspective to whatever analysis they might be providing, and to meet the requests of residents to have a better understanding of the dynamics here at play. So I used a similar study analysis, a 5-minute walk area around the project site. I selected streets based on the current road striping, so streets that actually allowed parking and streets that didn't. And then I counted the total spaces using real image maps and by walking these streets. So standard parking space, parallel parking space, about 20 feet long. And I subtracted out the driveways and intersections. Next slide. So I used parking observations via site visits, going out to the streets and counting number of cars, and by using drive-by counts. So this was an earlier time period. It was prior to the developer securing a parking study consultant. And there were about an average about 8 counts a street over roughly a month-long period. And I counted 277 on-street spaces on these 5 streets: Kenilworth, Starkweather, West 14th, Auburn, and West 11th. Next slide. So this is a map of the average occupancy. Can you go to the next slide, Maurice? I think the most important takeaway from this diagram is how underutilized parking underneath the highway is on Kenilworth and Starkweather. And I didn't know this until I went out and actually visited and spent a lot of time on these streets. There's a significant amount of parking that is, or a significant amount of street space that is actually signed or striped for no parking on both Kenilworth and Starkweather. So on Kenilworth, pretty much the entire north side of the street between West 14th and Scranton Road, parking is not permitted, and it's essentially because the curbmost lane, the rightmost lane on the north side, is essentially a long turning lane for Scranton. There's a dedicated route turn once you get to Scranton. And I spoke to our Commissioner of Traffic Engineering, who, after deliberating with me and looking at the site, determined that it's probably not necessary to have a turn lane that long because the traffic volumes just aren't high enough to warrant it, and indicated to me that that would be an area where we could pick up somewhere between 10 to 15 on-street spaces by modifying the signage and or modifying the road striping. Starkweather is another example. So it's not a striping issue there, but in fact, the entire south side of the street is signed for no parking. And just by removing these signs, we could probably pick up another 25 parking spaces in the neighborhood. I could not find a reason why this hasn't already been done, given the concerns around parking in the neighborhood. The traffic commissioner told me that no one's ever asked him to remove these signs. So I think that's a really good first step. We should, I think, take advantage of as much street space as possible. We should fully utilize the parking space, regardless of the outcome today and whether more housing projects get built in the neighborhood. I think these decisions should be made and would recommend them. Next slide. So like I said, I counted about 277 on-street parking spaces in that area you identified just on those red streets. The count I did was there were about 78% of total spaces were open, which means 216 spaces were available. If the project's approved, I think they only need 29 by code now because they clarified their bicycle parking quantity. That would leave about 187 spaces available. If it was one per unit, there would be 175 spaces available. Next slide. So understanding there are some caveats here, these counts occurred during the pandemic, which means that there probably aren't as many visitors as there might otherwise be, assuming there wasn't a public health crisis going on. I do think these counts reflect better or make it easier to count the total number of residents who rely on on-street parking since they're parking there regardless. And at least for businesses that are open, their employees are probably using this parking, considering the number of businesses in the area that don't have off-street parking or don't provide any off-street parking. I do think that those issues identified with the striping and signage existed, as far as I can tell, long before there was a pandemic. So that's something I think should still be remedied, like I said, regardless of the outcome. And then demand in usage in these counts is not reflected for special events, so like the farmers market or summer festivals or any church events, because we don't have parking counts for that. But as David mentioned, and as I also counted myself, the city and, well, actually, I believe it was the state of Ohio, built 2 parking lots, about a 5-minute walk to the north under the highway and along Abbey Road. So the parking lot under the highway is about 59 spaces, and the parking lot immediately to the east is about 40 spaces. And so that's not necessarily resident parking, but it is visitor parking for people who are utilizing the towpath and really just coming to the neighborhood. So that's parking that is consistently underutilized and is a 5-minute walk to the park. So I can only speculate using this information as to why those spaces aren't used, but it seems to indicate that there isn't sufficient demand for people to park at least this far away, which is, as indicated in the map, of roughly a 5-minute walk to the park, to the project site. Next slide. So I looked at, I think that speaks to the parking variance itself. I know one of the standards for Board of Zoning Appeals to grant this variance is a practical difficulty. I don't have a slide that spells this out, but I can testify that there are a lot of other multifamily housing projects going on or being completed in Fremont. Many of these are on much larger sites. This project site's about 9,000 square feet, which is roughly 2/10 of an acre. Some of the other project sites where they're able to provide underground or surface parking are much larger. They're either just under an acre or over an acre, which means they have a significantly more space to provide parking. And years ago, we met with this developer to figure out what recommendations to make in terms of how they comply with the zoning code. We suggested that.
Specify area. Have issues over there.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Matt. I just muted the person.
Thank you. the code requires the provision of living space on the ground floor and on off-street parking. And given the site constraints, we prioritized in recommending the developer provide living space on the ground floor because that helps create safer, more walkable, pleasant environments. And that reflects this first goal here. It's the city's goal to build more sustainable, equitable, and safer neighborhoods that promote travel by bike, transit, and walking. These are not only safer ways to get around, they're also more energy efficient and climate sensitive ways to get around. And we're trying to build neighborhoods where residents can meet their needs without having to drive and can choose to walk, bike, or take transit. That doesn't mean that they can't drive or shouldn't drive, but that to create more options for people, which is essentially creating greater freedom. And also underpinning this is our belief in the ethical obligation to address the impacts of climate change. Next slide. So these are our transit-oriented development goals. We want to target high-density development and proximity to transit stations and major bus stops, or support public transit. Using this analysis, the FTA provides a guide for mean residential density of urban projects is 36 units an acre. There was a study done in 2015 for West 25th, which had a lower target, lower minimum threshold of about 20 persons an acre, which is roughly 12 units an acre. Next slide. So I did some analysis to see how Tremont stacks up and in terms of meeting this goal and providing transit as a viable option, transportation option for people. So I counted the number of parcels in the neighborhood and I mapped a 1 acre hexagonal grid. Roughly in a quarter mile of the transit walk side, which is roughly a 5-minute walk. I added the 81 bus line because it's not a high frequency transit line. Right now, the 81 runs every 40 minutes, but it's the only bus line left in this part of Tremont. So you can see that outlined here. The RTA did recently just release its next gen transit plan, which replaces the 81 with a new line, which cuts off some of the availability on West 14th, but still goes through the central part of Tremont around Professor Avenue and actually increases in service to 30 minutes at peak instead of 40 minutes. Next slide. So right now in the project area, the current density is about 4 units an acre. That's about 2,800 units, which the project site is specifically 4 units an acre. In the whole area of the neighborhood, this part of the neighborhood, which is shown in the red box, it's about 9.65 units an acre. In order to get up to 11 units an acre, which would be that minimum threshold, we would need about 1,300 more units. And for 36 units an acre, we would need 10,000 more units, which is probably out of scope of possibility for this neighborhood. So the key takeaway, like I said, RTA is increasing its service at peak and would increase frequency to every 30 minutes on weekday peak. It would be 60 minutes off peak / overnight. So it is a shift, but service is getting slightly better. But in order to justify a higher level of service, there needs to be more demand for it. And part of that is by providing more homes for people in the neighborhood. But another part of that is building uses closer together. We know that when land uses are pushed further away because there's surface parking or there's incompatible land uses like industrial or other uses that aren't conducive to human activity, that it gets harder to walk, it becomes harder to bike, it becomes harder to take the bus, and it becomes harder for the city and the transit authority to provide service in those locations. So turning a surface parking lot into housing really helps achieve that goal. The other thing I would mention too is in part related to the pandemic. Last year, the city had about 74 fatalities on our streets, and this year we're already at 20. And it's a major goal of the city through the Vision Zero Task Force to try to eliminate traffic fatalities. And those are people who have died in auto-related crashes in the city. And it's not the only solution, but it's a crucial solution long-term for us to figure out ways we can build neighborhoods where you don't have to take a car, because it's just, finding through the data analysis that it is more dangerous to be in a car and it's more dangerous to be around cars. Next slide. This is at the final thing I want to share is at the request of Tim Donovan. He asked me to look at some crime data, I believe, at the last meeting. And so I did a quick analysis on that. I took crime reports from Cleveland Police Department between 2015 and 2020. The point data can indicate multiple reported crimes at the same location. And I used a GIS analysis to determine where, if any, there is statistical significance of either lower crime than expected or higher crime than expected. Next slide. So here's a map of all the crime reported incidents from 2015 to 2020. Next slide. This is again showing the hotspot analysis, which again shows areas where, if assuming crime is randomly distributed in the neighborhood, what parts of the neighborhood is it higher than expected or lower than expected? Next slide. So again, red hexagons are hotspots, areas where crime is higher than expected if crime are randomly distributed in the neighborhood. Blue hexagons are cold spots, where crime is lower than expected if it were randomly distributed. And if it's pale or gray, then that means it was not statistically insignificant and that it fits a random distribution. And I drew some arrows to show you where projects had recently been completed. And there doesn't seem from this analysis, the spatial analysis, that there's any correlation between mid-sized apartment buildings to large apartment building projects and crime based on what's been completed historically. Next slide. So again, this is just a summary of what I just stated. It does not reflect a correlation, and the data does only reflect reported crimes. So it's only crime that's being reported to the police department that we have the ability to analyze and map. And that's all I have for you. That's actually an extra slide I accidentally threw in there, but that's the summary of my presentation. I'd be happy to answer questions and discuss more about how this project, I think, relates to the city's goals to build more walkable, more sustainable neighborhoods and really address issues like traffic safety, crime safety. You know, it is a goal through projects like this to put more people on the street, which makes neighborhoods safer, more people walking around, more people interacting with their neighbors. And that's really our goal, is to build neighborhoods for people. So thank you.
Madam Chair, we do have the councilman would like to speak.
Absolutely. Good morning, Councilman McCormick.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to speak this morning. Madam Chair, I'm going to read a statement that I submitted to you. I believe you should have it. But before I do that, I would just say that I also share the same goals of walkability and safety in our roads, which is why I was excited to introduce last June the Complete and Green Streets Ordinance, which is being held up at the city level, and I hope to see that move shortly. Madam Chair, I'm going to read a statement, but essentially, from my perspective, the challenge here with these variance requests is that they have a conflict with the legal standard that is set forth by the Board of Zoning Appeals. So that is the general basis of my statement. But I do not support the Board of Zoning Appeals granting these variances. While I have concerns with the overall project, my personal opinion is not even the most important basis of this objection. It's my contention, Madam Chair, that the Board of Zoning Appeals must reject these variances on the grounds of the legal standard that governs the determination of this case and operations of the Board of Zoning Appeals. So the legal standard, Madam Chair, that governs this case is that the appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. For most cases, Madam Chair, that come in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals, the applicant is appealing through these standards for relief from an antiquated zoning code that in many cases does not reflect the current or desired uses of the community and has not been updated in many years. Due to this common situation, the board rightfully grants variances on a regular basis to a vast array of projects. However, for case number 2135, this is not the situation. Madam Chair, in April of 2017, I introduced Ordinance 43917, changing the use and area and height districts of lands in the Walworth Run area along the Cuyahoga River south of Carter Road and along West 14th Street. This ordinance was drawn up by the City of Cleveland's Planning Department after a thorough and comprehensive community process that involved extensive feedback from local block clubs, residents, and the Community Development Corporation. The legislation was unanimously approved by the City of Cleveland's Planning Commission, followed by unanimous approval by Cleveland City Council. Ordinance 43917, named the Walworth Run rezoning, was passed to codify in the zoning code the joint vision and intent of the residents of the Tremont neighborhood, myself, as well as the professional staff of the City of Cleveland's Planning Commission. Finally, this legislation was presented by the Planning Department as, quote, aligning with the adjacent zoning districts and the Cleveland 2020 Comprehensive Plan, unquote. As a part of the wider rezoning, the parcel in front of you today was rezoned from multifamily D2 to local retail G2 with an urban form overlay. This rezoning increased the allowable uses and density of the site, as well as reduced the parking requirement for any future development. This new identification was legislated in agreement with the community to encourage investment on this site and even to lower the amount of parking required. Ordinance 43917 is germane to this case, Madam Chair, because it established the legal and practical intent of the zoning code through a community process supported by the planning department and unanimously it passed through the City of Cleveland's Planning Commission and through City Council. Therefore, the variances requested in this case, section 348.04, which state that 30 parking spaces are required and no parking spaces are proposed, should not be granted as they directly conflict with the recently and purposely established intent of the zoning code, do not provide any evidence that not granting the variances provides a practical difficulty shared by others in the district, and don't provide the new property owner property rights, as this zoning code has been in place since 2017. And again, it actually expanded the allowable uses and reduced the parking requirement from previous zoning on this parcel. In the instance that the Board of Zoning Appeals votes to grant these variances, Madam Chair, it would be acting as a de facto legislative body by changing the expressed intent of the zoning code. While the BOZA does very important work, legislative changes are strictly a function of the legislative body and cannot be administratively changed through boards and commissions. So thank you again, Madam Chair, for allowing me to read that statement. But in essence, again, because this zoning code classification in this part of the neighborhood was intentionally and unanimously adopted by the City of Cleveland's Planning Commission and by council, drawn up by the planning staff through a robust public process, it establishes the intent of the zoning code. Unlike other parts of the city where the zoning hasn't been changed in many, many years. Therefore, I believe that when folks are building in this area or otherwise, it's important to stay within the parameters of the intent of the zoning code that was established through a community process and codified by City Council. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman McCormick. Okay, I want to go down to
Madam Chair, before we leave, any questions from Councilman McCormick? I know I have one or two.
Okay, go ahead, Tim.
If I heard you right, it seems that you're saying that perhaps in terms of future cases, including the one we're deliberating today, that the Board of Zoning Appeals, the role that we have would be diminished or perhaps even forgotten, because there shouldn't be in these cases any latitude for meeting word by word, letter by letter, the new zoning code that's been successfully passed, as you mentioned, through planning and City Council, etc. Is that a message that you're trying to send with the stance you're taking?
And Madam Chair, to the committee member, the legal standard, of course, in front of you, the board has to consider on every single case that comes in front of it. Specifically for this, the purpose intent of the zoning code is what I really wanted to call out, which of course, you all follow on every case. So what I'm saying is that in general, because of cases in front of you regarding to a zoning code that hasn't been updated in 100 years or 80 years or whatever, I think that's one situation. But yes, in areas where the zoning code has been intentionally, methodically, and thoughtfully adapted, I do believe that as a city, we should pay much closer attention to that, abiding to that zoning code, because it is the product of the community, the planning department, and the council person stating the intent of that zoning code. So in layman's terms, we're going out into the community saying, hey folks, what do you want to see in the neighborhood? What would you like to see? And we're using the zoning code as a tool to shape that future. So because we've gone through that exercise, yes, I do believe that the Board of Zoning Appeals should heavily consider that in the deliberations because it's been intentionally set. And again, I just wanted to also note that for this specific parcel, the density was increased, the use was increased, and the parking was already reduced. So
Exactly.
in essence, it became easier to develop this site through the zoning exercise.
Councilman, I do want to commend you for the letter you sent in. I thought it was very astute, and I thought it dealt with the issue in a very objective way. And I think you got the background data right on, and that is that I've been on this board for 20 some years, and we have basically been in a position where there's a trapdoor that says, hey, we haven't changed zoning around here in a century. So therefore, granting variances is a regular course meal for us on every Monday morning. And I think that what we've seen is in some neighborhoods that have thrived under investment, we have granted many variances, but we've done so with the community and the developers and the city all in lockstep together for the outcome. It's only recently that we started to see, for lack of a better term, protests to the product being asked for variances from. And I think that does mark perhaps a new chapter as we're moving forward. So I want to thank you for your very thoughtful analysis of the situation.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, if I may just briefly respond to that. And again, if I represent Ohio City downtown, Tremont, I don't think there's a person out there that could make an argument that I don't support growth in the city. There's probably more residential growth in my ward than the rest of the city combined or close to it. The concern here, though, Madam Chair, is that when we engage the community to develop a zoning plan that reflects what they want to see in their neighborhood, that there is a level of assurance that the intent of that exercise is going to be honored by the city of Cleveland. So that's just the basis.
Thank you again, Councilman, for all your good work. Okay, I'm going to now go to some of the residents that have come down. Well, nobody's come down. They're all in their own home.
Madam Chair, we did have Corey Reardon with his hand up earlier. I'm not sure if he wanted to talk.
Okay, Corey.
I would be fine holding my comments, Madam Chair, till the end after the residents. I have my hand up.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. You and Khalid and Don Pettit, I'm going to call near the end. I'd like to hear from the.
We have a Susan. Is she a resident?
Yes, I'm a resident.
Okay, please state your name again, Susan.
Susan Shalaba. I'm a resident and also a parishioner at St. Augustine Church. And I'm like you, so impressed with what Councilman McCormick and how he's advocating for our neighborhood. But I do want to say that in earlier meetings, I'm not very good at public speaking, but in earlier meetings, the developer has, and we've talked about St. Augustine and the mission and the St. Augustine Center. And I just want to say that this practical difficulty would be transferred to St. Augustine. We truly have a 15-car parking lot, historically a part of the neighborhood. Our parishioners could not walk 5 minutes. Most are, many are disabled, older, people with families. And I just want to say that regardless of what the study says about 5-minute walks and parking spaces, I live here, I see how crowded the parking is. And I think it's interesting that the developer intentionally left out a Sunday to do a parking analysis, a day when most likely Lincoln Park residents would be home, they would be parking close to their homes, and it would definitely, I think, eat up the parking. What we value is the shared parking for the neighborhood, for the churches, for the businesses around Lincoln Park. That's our issue. And it is necessary to have that shared parking for all of our well-being. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Susan. But I'm also looking at the TMS engineers thing. None of it goes beyond 6 o'clock at night.
Right.
you know, when people would either be coming home to park or going to a restaurant or going to a bar or whatever, or doing something social at the park. I really.
For my church, I'll just say too, you know, most of our ministries take place in the evening. Many of my church members have written letters addressing this. Our pastor must not have been able to get on the call. He wanted to be here today, but I think there must have been some trouble with his getting in through the phone. So I just want to say again that we will develop, you know, we do support the urban overlay, we do support development, but this is shared, this is community shared parking, and I think it needs to be left for us all to share. And the history of St. Augustine, we serve the Cleveland community as much as any other social service does. We have been feeding the homeless and feeding, helping neighbors for 50 years under the guardianship of Sister Carita and Father Joe. And we just want to be able to continue to do that. We want our parishioners to be able to, many who were old neighborhood people who had to move out of the neighborhood because they can't afford it now. They need to be able to park closer to the church on the days when we're, you know, using it. And we have a practical hardship. We don't have a place to put a parking lot. And so I just wanted to say that. And thank you for your time. It's been
Thank you, Susan.
I've learned so much about our city this past year, and I've enjoyed doing that. So,
Madam Chair, we have Jonathan with his hand raised.
Jonathan?
Madam Chair, thank you for recognizing me, members of the board. Thanks for having us here. I just want to
Jonathan, I need your last name.
My last name is Petrea, Petrea.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to thank Councilman McCormick for his for really honing in on what the issue is here today. And you know, I know we've got some parking studies and we've mentioned some crime studies, and I think those are great and fine. But really, the crux of the issue here lies within the three legal standards, and I think that the councilman addressed them quite thoroughly and quite articulately, and I hope that this is your guidance as you arrive upon a decision today. But I will say this, regardless of what TMS engineers says, that's really a very small snapshot of I don't even have Snapchat, okay? A small snapshot of what the reality is here in our neighborhood, you know, especially during the summertime and as activities ensue post-pandemic. And I hope that you take all of this into consideration. And I certainly appreciate your time. This has been a long and extended situation, and I don't want to extend it any longer. So with that, I will just thank you all, and I hope we have a great day.
Thank you. You too, Jonathan. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, now Kate O'Neill was next.
Good to hear from her, Kate.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, everyone on our block club for helping participate in a collection of information for us to share with you today. I also thank Councilman McCormick for his comments. I think what we've experienced over this year is everyone's concern that what we witness as residents is difficult to communicate from just a subjective experience to objective data. So even before our previous two postponements, people started to gather data about the cars in the area. So when we collected our data points, we have 53 data points in this study the neighbors collected from November through February. Now, all of that was pandemic time with restrictions in place and, you know, and closures, not even restrictions in some places. But we still show that we have a demand for parking in the area at that time. we witnessed parking between 7:30 a.m. and midnight. Kenilworth, West 11th, Starkweather, and 14th, all bordering the park. We have 62% average vacancy at those times, 37% vacancy, or about 40 spaces. If we consider what we observed discussing things with area businesses, we took Prosperity Social Club just as one example. They had 2/3 reduction of staff. They were estimating a significant reduction of business, almost 70% in 2020. So is that an estimated reduction of 40 to 50 cars conservatively per day, which primarily is on Starkweather and 11th? The church services were not occurring. Their evening meetings and masses were significantly reduced. And yet we still saw as many as 27 cars parked in 17 spaces on more than one occasion. So just some simple math can show us that when Merrick House reduces, comes back to their numbers, Cloak and Dagger, Corner 11, Civilization, when all these places are back into full operation, and the church and the park and the swimming pool and normal summer activities. That's what we witness in our years of living there, the crowded areas where visitors cross into our driveways and block driveways because there's nowhere else to park. It's a tremendous experience. It's hard to put into numbers, but I think we did our best in the time that we could, given that we were all under COVID restrictions too. Dan Lotz is not able to join us today, but he really wanted to express that the sample conducted by the developers is a poor sample. It's flawed. It's not a clear understanding of the situation. With only 3 days, no evenings, not a Sunday to consider the church, and during the pandemic and during winter. I think we have another issue too that a few members have raised. If this developer's not presenting us new letters of intent, then their previous letters of intent to show some parking provisions are expired by many months. So that is a question we have for the developers today. We're concerned that this project would set a dangerous precedent for all future development, that the cost would far outweigh any benefit. It's hard to see. The costs only exacerbate existing issues for all the neighbors right now. And regarding crime, we did not take much to study crime, but we can only share that while we were out during these days conducting our observations, 3 people had catalytic converters stolen off of their cars while parked on the park during this time. So again, it's just an observational share, but our increased activity on the park concluded in 3 crimes. So that I present to you. We welcome any questions. We presented all of our findings in photography because we thought they might be challenged. So we welcome you to visit the video if you've not yet seen that.
No, we appreciate that. That was excellent.
Thank you very much for again and again for hearing all of our concerns all these many months. We all learned a lot about our city, our laws, our process. We are a tighter, more involved block club.
That's great.
Process, and we thank you for that.
All I know is I am not walking 5 minutes from my car to haul groceries, even if I have a cart, all the way up to my apartment. And that isn't going to happen. And I think a lot of people will feel the same way.
And furthermore, I think that 5-minute away parking lot is Metro Park territory, and we were already seeing a lot of usage for it. So we didn't include that in our study. But you know, if you really wanted to find the answers to this, a fuller study would be warranted. When we meet a project for the first time, we ask them for things like feasibility studies, parking traffic studies, and we asked that of these developers 1.5 years ago. So a fuller study would have been a really interesting
especially through the warmer months.
And through the warmer months
Nicest
in
weather,
summer.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, who else have we got before I
Thank you very
decide
much.
I call it? Thank you very much, Kate. Who
We
else
have
do we
Ben Cooper next, Madam Chair.
Okay, Mr. Cooper?
Hello. I would add, I mean, I would like to echo everything that everyone else has said. I'm also a resident, and my recollection of what the developer was asked to do with his parking study wasn't just to count spots. It was to actually assess the impact on the public goods that we're the most worried about. So the park and the church in West 14th. And by extending their search out very far and all the constraints that you've heard, they kind of missed the point. But actually, I would suggest that if you dig into their data, it tells you there's already a problem. The usage level is very low as a percent. But if you look at their own data and you look at how many spots are available, there's only 33 spots on average during these shoulder periods. So basically, they're telling you that if they built what they're proposing, all those spots would get eaten up right away just from their own new residents. So the problem, their data actually tells you there's a problem. So that's all I have to say. I agree with everything else everyone else has said. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Okay, and next? Somebody named Brent?
We had Brent Zimmerman. Yes, I believe he's one of the applicants. That was Ben Cooper, I believe we just heard from, and those are all the hands I have raised at the moment.
Okay, then I want to go to Khalid.
Good morning, still morning time. Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Khalid.
Yeah, so just following up on everything that the community has said, I've been looking at all the different things and media sources, comments, and things of that nature. This is not a NIMBY issue, and I think that kind of insults the intelligence of the people in our community. They are very supportive of development. They supported this project from the beginning when it was a code compliant project, we tried to reach out many times to the development team to resolve issues. We've done that with many projects in Tremont. We've have over 1,200 units under development or proposed in the next year or two. So this is not a anti-development stance that we're taking here. We want to make sure we're looking out into the future and avoiding problems. As the councilman mentioned, this is attempting to create policy changes through a variance process, which is not, that's not the optimal scenario. If we actually sat down, I believe that if we sat down and put all our heads together, we could come up with a plan of action to move forward with a development here. But that requires looking at all the parking in this area. You look at the Lincoln development, that's 100 units, approximately 100 units, Kenilworth and Scranton. You have the Byzantine Church, which was sold off by the developer. That's also going to be coming to you for a variance for parking for an event center, which they will need a variance of 40 something spaces, but they're going to use valet parking, and then overflow. Who knows where the overflow is going to go? But you also have Tremont Oaks, 8 units that was developed under the urban form overlay. And then there's other pending development that's out there as well. All these things that will fit under the urban form overlay, which will be under parking, but with the idea that all this, that we'll be using this off street as a shared resource amongst people. But if we provide a variance to one development, that throws all that off. And so that gives them, I think that gives a more complete picture of what's going on here. And like I said, if, putting everybody together in the same room to talk about it. I talked more to Matt Moss about this project than the actual development team, which is kind of unfortunate, but anyway. So I just wanted to I just want to make sure that the people who are have these concerns, they're legitimate concerns, and need to be taken seriously. Everybody's weighed in. Also, I'm sure Corey would like to say more about the process and things of that nature. But I'll hand it over to him.
Thank you very much. Corey Reardon, ready for you.
Madam Chair, thank you, and thank you to all the residents and Councilman McCormick and Khalid for their comments. I think that one of the things that was tasked of the development team was to produce a parking study in collaboration with the city and the neighborhood. And I believe that Tim Donovan requested that. If you looked at the transcripts, and you see that that didn't happen, that you have 3 different parking studies from 3 different entities. And so that's one of the challenges. We're talking about policy here. And I think, all of this information is great and we need to have that policy discussion. But we had that in 2017. That was a reset of the zoning code that said, okay, here's increases in density and decreases in the necessary parking. Nothing has changed since that time. And even what the board has requested, I don't believe has been met. So the neighbors are against it. The Community Development Corporation against it. The councilman's against it. I don't think it meets the requirements that BZA has for approving a case. And I really think that this is a policy discussion that needs to be had. And if the city really wants to change policy, or the planning department really wants to change policy, roll up your sleeves, work with the neighbors, work with the neighborhood to convince the community that these things will advance us into the future. I see nothing in the 2020 plan that compels me to believe that waiving parking for a particular project is necessary to the things that were in that document or any of the documents that I've reviewed from the city of Cleveland. So there's a lot of work to be done to move in that direction, and we're a willing partner. We have been progressive in our neighborhood on development for a very long time. And Madam Chair, that when it comes to Tremont projects, we take our role as a community development corporation very seriously. And you don't see many people coming to the hearings because we do all that work in advance. What has happened here is an indication that that work was not done either by the developer and partnering with us to come to compromises that the neighbors and neighborhood can live with. And I'll leave it there, but thank you for the time.
Thank you. Donald Pettit, are you still here?
I am still here, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. I'll be very brief. I don't think I'm going to change anyone's opinion today. The Landmarks Commission approved this project last year. The applicant made all the concessions to the design that we asked for. So we support the project. The commission supports the project. 2 years ago, we were at an impasse. We denied a previous proposal for this site that would have involved the demolition of a historic house and the former rectory of Holy Ghost Church. Currently, there's a new owner for that house, and there is a new owner for the church. And both of those projects will be going through our process very soon for restoration and for change of use. The commission supports this project because it gives us the opportunity to preserve 2 historic buildings and put a development, an appropriately designed development on an important corner and replace the surface parking lot. My commission has no consensus on the parking issue, and that's why we're here today. And I respect the neighborhood's opinions on this, and I also respect the board's authority to take final action on the parking variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Madam Chair, we have Mr. Mason.
Mr. Mason.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. Hey, I just wanted to clarify a couple points and maybe build on what Don just said. The hardship we have here is what Don spoke to. we changed and reduced the area of the site by almost 40% to preserve the important rectory building, which made it very difficult to both park and, as Matt Moss described earlier, provide the type of vibrancy at street level that the city really needs. So I wanted to just to again remind us, because it's been a while since we've all gone through this project, but there was a significant reduction in the area of the site, which led us to working hand in hand with the city to try to propose an appropriate building, and we feel like we have. To the parking issue, and I'm not sure about the math that Ben was mentioning to get to 30 spaces, but that's just not accurate. And I know that everybody has in their minds the big offense where you can't park within, several blocks of all of Tremont, but when those events aren't happening, there's a lot of parking available, and professional studies that cost thousands of dollars have yielded what we've all witnessed ourselves, or at least some of us. But I wanted to note that we have the full allotment. The 30 spaces of parking are leased across the park. We've always had those spaces. We've kept those spaces. The question was they may not be available during the day. So the study didn't look past 6 o'clock, because post 6 o'clock, we have the 30 spaces necessary across the park. And all of that is predicated on a need that suggests that there isn't a possibility that anybody wants to live differently. Our 46 units are 4% of the 1,200 that Khalid mentioned earlier. So 4% of the people could choose to live differently. And I guess the thing that's nice about this project is it offers that choice, because I'm not going to live there if I need a car, if I need to park. I'm going to choose one of the 1,200 units. It's not like this is a captive audience. It's the only choice that people have. I think it's going to be a real shame, because I think this project is a step in the right direction towards sustainable communities. And I understand the resistance, but it's a very small project. And I think we've worked very hard to get to something that could do a really nice job for the street. And I hope you'll consider that as you vote.
Madam Chair, we have Corey Reardon, then Matt Moss.
Corey?
Madam Chair, to David, I'd like to know how many units were originally planned on when the site was larger, and how many parking spots were available on site in the first design.
David, you can answer.
My memory is 28 units, and I believe that we had close to, I think we had 18 or 19 parking spaces. I can look that up and get back to you, Corey, but it's been a couple of years now. I'll check and I'll jump back on.
I believe it was 26 and 20, if my memory serves me correctly. They actually added 6 units to take down the rectory building. Their original proposal they showed to us was 20 units with the 65% parking.
Madam Chair, then Matt Moss.
Matt Moss.
Madam Chair, I just want to add for the board's edification, the modal split of the city for trips that we see usually for commuting, so about 15%. And what that means is that's people who are using alternative modes to the automobile to take those trips. So 15% of trips are generally done without a car. So just in case that fact is helpful.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else, Maurice?
No, that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, unless Khalid had his hand up, but you just spoke, so I'm not sure if he wants to say something again.
24 and 18, he thinks is correct. Brent Zimmerman says.
So, Madam Chair, the question then is the site got smaller, the units went up, all parking was eliminated. They said that their constraints were more. I just don't understand that. I understand a smaller building with less parking on a smaller site, but they're going from 26 units to 49 units as their site was constricted. Certainly there's room to create parking if you can almost double the number of units. That was my point, sorry. Thank you.
That's okay. Appreciate that. Board, questions, comments? Are you still with me?
Yeah,
Hello?
we're here. We're here.
Okay. Any questions, Tim? I know had several over the weekend, but
I
did you
think
get them
that,
answered?
this case is one that would have to be filed under the S file for Solomon. There's so many intriguing factors to it, so much in terms of impact for the neighborhood, especially with the historic preservation elements of the two churches. I'm very happy to hear that there's a developer online to rescue and repurpose the church itself. I was really concerned about that in terms of the ultimate denouement of what happens here. In my thinking, it goes back again to the fact that when I got on this board, I was told that the zoning code was so antiquated that it's very normal to give variances out to make sure that investment occurs in the city of Cleveland. We're losing population. We need density for some of these other high goals in terms of walkability and abandoning cars, in terms of transit and bikes, etc. So we have, as a board, I think, regularly listened to that. And it's only in recent years and only in pockets of Cleveland that we've starting to see some significant pushback, if you will, by the residents and by the local development corporations in terms of the question of, are we doing too much? Is that 5-pound bag of potatoes having not 10 pounds, but 20 pounds in it? And there has been some new zoning ordinances that have been put in place to help, I think, alleviate the need for individual variances, as we've heard Councilman McCormick testify. So his perspective has a huge weight in terms of my deliberation. I'd like to hear from my fellow board members about what they're thinking.
Well, mine will be in my vote, I guess. Are there any other comments from the other board members? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Tim, maybe you'd like to make the motion.
Madam Chair, based on the evidence provided and the statement from the councilman outlining the process that has taken place for the new zoning classification along West 14th Street, and given the fact that that zoning classification is meant to be followed very deliberately, because it is a product of process that included the residents, included the planning commission, and included the local development corporation, I would move that we would not grant the variance.
Second, call the roll.
Ms. Faith? Have we lost her?
Did you call me, Liz?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Yeah. I'm going to abstain.
You can abstain. You're not allowed to abstain.
Madam Chair, to Lori Wagner, should the abstention have happened at the beginning of the hearing, or is that just when we recuse?
Well, it would be more customary to happen at the beginning of the meeting. Perhaps, I don't know if things have arisen during this hearing that made Ms. Faith decide that she needed to abstain. Perhaps she wants to explain that.
Alana?
Given the testimony of the councilman, if it is an ordinance that has been passed, and if we vote against it, then we are voting, we are outside our purview, and we are essentially voting against we are voting against the ordinance. So if we vote no, we're essentially breaking the law. So if we vote yes, then that's the only choice.
Well, no,
So
that's not really correct. That's certainly an argument you want to consider. If you didn't have the legal authority to grant the variance, you wouldn't be here. So you do have the authority to grant it or to deny it. And I'm not really hearing any reason. Is there any personal reason to abstain, or that you feel like you have a conflict of interest?
I do feel like I have a conflict of interest.
Do you want to explain what that is?
I think that this is, you know, I think it discriminates against anyone that doesn't have a car, and that anyone who chooses to use public transportation. And that would affect me personally.
Well, usually a conflict of interest would be a direct effect because you know the parties, or you know the witnesses, you live in the neighborhood. It would impact your own property.
I have been messaged by someone who lives in the neighborhood, who I considered a friend, who felt compelled to send me articles that were in the local newspaper of my testimony at previous meetings in a derogatory fashion, with my interpretation being to influence my decision. So I probably should have recused myself at the beginning, but I'm dealing with technical issues here, so.
Well, if you feel there's issues that prevent you from making an impartial decision based just on the testimony of all the witnesses here today, then you do have a right to recuse yourself.
Yes, I feel like I've been tried to be, that people have been trying to manipulate me, so I prefer not to make a vote.
Well, we need three yes or three positive votes to grant the variance. So in essence, that would be a vote to deny the variance. I think you should proceed with the roll call, Ms. Kukla.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we have Mr. Donovan, Ms. Brent.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple things before I vote. You know, I've been on the fence with this case, you know, since it started, because I do feel like that neighborhoods should, you know, provide products for people who live differently. And because you don't live that way, that doesn't mean that they're not welcome to be in your area. And everyone cannot afford a car and, you know, can live somewhere without having one. And that we, as the Board of Zoning Appeals, when cases come before us, most of the time we only hear fervent no's. So everyone who's against the case comes out, and most of the time people are for the case do not come out. So we get a skewed view from the neighborhood about exactly who is for, how many is for, and how many is against the project. But with that being said, I do think that the councilman's testimony today kind of swayed me to maybe to look at it a little differently, as far as that things have been in place, and that the community did speak, you know, prior to this by going through the whole process of putting out the policy about what the new zoning would be. So with that being said, I am gonna move forward with a yes from Tim's motion.
Okay, Ms. Barnes.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Calendar 20-135 has been denied. It'll be ratified next week, and we will send you a letter.
Thank you all for coming, being a part of the process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Holy shit.
Thank you so much. Jonathan, you're not.
Thank you.
1 through 5. Board 5 without objection.
Without objection.
Without objection.
Oh my God.
Without objection.
Jonathan, you need to mute yourself. We can still hear you.
Yes.
Jonathan, mute yourself.
Unbelievable. Sorry, people.
Any other business?
Nope, no other business.
All right.
All right, see you
See
guys
you
next
next
week.
Yep.